As a BTS fan, you may have been told something like this when you first became an ARMY. Don't even try to analyze BTS's music videos. If you heard this and followed this advice, that's completely understandable. Many BTS music videos are multi-layered. They deal with complicated themes. They reference concepts, art, and stories that many of us probably never heard of before we became fans. I mean, I'm someone who loves literature, but I certainly had never heard of Hermann Hesse's Demian before I began deep diving into the BTS album Wings, nor did I know anything about the short story The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas before a spring day. Likewise, many BTS songs can be tough to fully understand upon a first listen, and I don't mean because they're in Korean. Rather, there are often concepts in BTS songs that require explanation to fully grasp, or which need context a lot of us don't have. Unfortunately, I think many people fall into the trap of assuming that because these things are difficult to understand, that means they are out of their grasp. I think they assume that they can't possibly understand these things, and so they give up or never even try to start. As I said, I can understand why. But I also think anyone can come to understand, analyze, and theorize about BTS's music videos and songs, unlocking even deeper meaning in these amazing pieces of art. It doesn't require an advanced degree or years of study to engage with the media you love in thoughtful ways, and BTS's body of work is a prime example of this. So, how exactly can you get started on your own path to analyzing? Here are a few of my thoughts and personal steps about how to make any BTS music video or song, even some of the most daunting ones, a stepping stone into deeper learning, understanding, and enjoyment. To start, there are a few things I think it's good to remember whenever you analyze something. As a BTS channel, obviously I'm applying this to BTS analysis, but I believe it works for anything that requires critical thinking. The first thing to remember is this: there is no shame in not knowing something. This might sound like an obvious statement, but I think it can be easy to forget. Many times, people end up feeling stupid if they don't know the answer to something right away, and because it's never fun to feel stupid, they decide they'd rather not try. But remember, and again, this sounds obvious, everyone who knows a fact started off not knowing it. They had to learn, ask questions, and start from a place of not understanding before they could grow. Additionally, something else to keep in mind. There are some things you can't possibly know yourself and will need help to understand. Everything that's ever been created is made with some level of context surrounding it. Context is the circumstances in which something is created. For instance, that might include the time period, place, or language in which that thing was made. And these factors allow us to fully understand content. But because we don't always share the time period, place, language, etc. of something that's been created, we don't always have all the facts. This is exactly why many pieces of classic literature come in annotated versions, because oftentimes there are references made in these stories that make more sense to a past audience than they do to us today. As such, they need to be explained in order to make the story fully come alive for a modern audience. For many of us, the same is true for BTS's work. A lot of BTS's songs, especially their early work, are tied to the time and place of South Korea in the early to mid-2010s. If we're not native Korean speakers, and we didn't live in South Korea during the same time period as BTS, we might not be able to get some of their references or understand some of their mindsets. As such, we need a little help to fully understand what they're talking about in their songs. Luckily, there are tons of great resources that already exist that can help with this very thing. A lot of lyrics translators, for instance, also give us context that we might need to understand a reference made during a song, a bit of clever Korean wordplay, or the significance of a certain theme. In the instances of BTS's social commentary, these themes may be universally recognizable, but their exact specifics might require a little help, so there are YouTube channels and podcasts where people dive deep into these important topics. And of course, there are plenty of theorists out there, myself included, who make it our mission to take all of this info and begin thinking about it in new ways. The best part is that sometimes BTS themselves even give us these tools. For instance, sometimes one of the best resources for what a song is about comes from RM's own album reviews. As the band's main lyricist and leader, these live broadcasts often feature RM sharing a treasure trove of knowledge about album concepts, song themes, and the musical process the band goes through to make a track. The rest of the band often does likewise in album press conferences, live comeback broadcasts, and sometimes even in interviews. In each and every one of these resources, BTS themselves encourage us to think deeply about their music and message, urging us to apply these concepts to our own lives. But in order to do that, we need to approach their songs with the knowledge that there's often a lot going on under the surface, and we may need to dig deeper to explore it all. I believe that, in order to do this, there are a few easy steps to follow. Step 1 is to be curious and to understand that many things you hear and see in BTS's work are intentional. For an example of this, let's turn to the 2013 song No, and to this line in particular. At first, this might seem fairly straightforward, and it might seem like they're referring to the actual sky. However, take a look at the subtitles for the music video or the official lyrics in the album, and you may notice something. Sky is entirely capitalized, the way an acronym might be. So does SKY stand for something? And if so, what? Just by being curious about this one line, you can unlock deeper meaning for the entire song, the entire album, and BTS's entire early school era in general. The next step to understanding what might be at play here is to look at No as a whole and realize it's a critique of the pressures and expectations put on young people, especially to do well in school and succeed afterward. The lyrics reveal the pressures that exist to get good jobs and earn a lot of money, which often leads to people giving up their own dreams and being trapped in the dreams of others. With all that in mind, let's revisit the SKY acronym through a very simple online search. What does SKY stand for in South Korea? Through this search, we'll discover that SKY stands for the names of 3 universities in South Korea: Seoul National University, the S, Korea University, the K, and Yonsei University, the Y. From there, you have plenty of opportunities to find out more, whether from the Wikipedia article on the subject or from articles that exist all around the internet discussing the universities. A quick glance through any of these tells us that these schools are very well respected and that attending them is seen as a mark of status. In that way, they can be thought of as similar to Ivy League schools in America or prestigious schools like Oxford or Cambridge in the United Kingdom. With this in mind, let's return to the lyrics of No, where we now realize that sky has this double meaning, and look at the lines in a little more detail. These lines ask if there is any limit to the ambition of others. Will the adults in a student's life be happy if that student reaches for the sky, and in so doing becomes a part of the sky universities? Will they be satisfied if the student grows up to become someone who is successful and makes a lot of money? But, more importantly, will that student themselves be happy with that? The rest of the song and the video make it clear that it's essential to dream your own dream rather than be caught up in these lofty and potentially hollow metrics of success. So I think you can see how just being curious and knowing that BTS does things with intention in their songs can unlock a great deal of meaning that might otherwise go unrealized. In some instances, a quick online search and reading a few articles can unlock the meaning not just of one song, but of several, or can even point to an important theme in BTS's work as a whole. For instance, you may be familiar with the song Baepsae from BTS's album The Most Beautiful Moment in Life Part 2, but if you do a little research, you can get a glimpse at the thought process behind several BTS songs. As before, this starts with step 1. We hear the word Baepsae and we're curious. We see this Baepsae being referenced throughout the lyrics, with BTS comparing themselves to it. Next step, we take our curiosity and use it for research, quickly discovering that Baepsae is the Korean word for an adorable little bird known as the Korean crow tit. Suddenly it makes sense why an alternative title for this song is crow tit. But why this bird? Why is BTS comparing themselves to this bird in the context of the song's lyrics, which are talking about things like school, jobs, and the status quo? So we keep digging, and we'll soon find a Korean proverb that features our friend the Baepsae. The proverb goes as follows: if a Baepsae, crow tit, walks like a stork, it will break its legs. This immediately illuminates several lines in the song, such as those that refer to the older generation as being storks, or Suga's line, "I've got Baepsae's legs, and you have stork's legs," a line that then goes on to talk about how storks then expect the Baepsaes to keep up despite these uneven circumstances. It even makes the song's famous dance move make a little more sense when you consider the fact that this move comes in tandem with the line, "Thanks to the storks, my legs are swollen," or "my legs spread." If you do a little reading about this metaphor, it will also tell you something about Korean culture and point to something BTS is critiquing, the strict limits placed on people within the social hierarchy. In the song, BTS refer to themselves and all young people as Baepsaes, also known as tryhards, those who are trying too hard to better themselves and are essentially crow tits trying to walk like storks. Meanwhile, the older generation, who have more and are described using the metaphor of being born with silver spoons in their mouths, are described as the storks. The storks are criticizing the Baepsaes for trying too hard, all while hoarding the power and influence they are unwilling to give to the Baepsaes, despite how hard these tryhards try. Things like this don't just illuminate Baepsae, but also Not Today, where BTS encourage "Baepsae, put your hands up," Cypher Part 4, where Suga says in his verse that he can be called a Baepsae, or Am I Wrong, where the idea of storks versus Baepsae come back around. The themes explored here also tell us a lot about BTS's early songs, shedding light on them in new ways. Remember what we saw in No's lyrics about the expectation that young people should work as hard as possible, even if it means giving up their own dreams and stepping on their own friends to get to the top? Baepsae introduces an extra layer to this, because this song is about the impossibility of climbing to the top. So when we couple that message with No's message, we can really learn something about BTS's social commentary. They point out the cruel irony of being pushed to work as hard as possible in a broken system where hard work will never actually push you ahead. They critique the insanity of being called lazy when you spread yourself thin in a system that is actively keeping you from ever doing better for yourself. This multi-layered analysis is part of what makes it so much fun to analyze BTS and their music. Because the members write real lyrics about real stories, it's possible to trace themes throughout albums and beyond, expanding and continuing to comment on these themes, sometimes with even more maturity and greater context. For another example, this same process also applies to the metaphor of the spoon. It might be easy to look at lyrics like "Who says my spoon is dirty" in the song Mic Drop, or "Stop calling me a spoon" in Fire, and scratch your head. But if you recall the lesson that BTS lyrics are deliberate, this should serve as a neon sign telling us there's something new to learn. So if we do a little research, we'll find out more about Korean spoon class theory, where different types of spoons refer to the economic class an individual is born into, and which claim that success is only possible if you're born into a wealthy family. These types of themes and lyrics can be found in all sorts of BTS songs, and can easily lead to fascinating research rabbit holes, especially since many of these concepts are linked. Want to add greater context to these critiques? Take a look at the Wikipedia page known as Hell Joseon, which helps to explain the line "Rebel against this hellish society" in No More Dream. Wonder why RM is discussing beef jerky in the song Dope? Then do a little research about the Sampo generation and take a look at your favorite lyric translation websites to learn about the clever wordplay he uses there. Before you know it, you'll have a clearer picture not only of BTS's creative, clever, and impactful social commentary, but even more context for popular Korean media such as the Oscar award-winning film Parasite or the popular Netflix series Squid Game, just to name a few. Alright, So this is all well and good for lyric analysis, but what about music video analysis? BTS music videos are full of symbolism, storylines, callbacks, and Easter eggs to other works. As such, there is so much to unpack and analyze that it can feel like an uphill climb, and curiosity may not be enough. However, just like with lyric analysis, it's nevertheless a good place to start, since so much of BTS's intention with their music videos does start by at least being curious enough to engage. Remember what I said at the beginning of this video, that BTS's music tends to be inspired by various art and tends to reference these things throughout? There's nothing wrong with searching for Omelas when you see it in Spring Day, or searching for the quote on the wall at the end of Blood, Sweat, and Tears. In fact, I encourage you to do exactly that. These things serve as great first steps to take as you dive into these complex worlds. My earlier advice about remembering that things happen for a reason in BTS's work especially applies to the music videos. In many instances, BTS music video sets have been created from scratch, and their storylines have been storyboarded to perfection, meaning many gestures, expressions, locations, and even the boys' outfits are planned to convey a specific message. My main piece of advice in analyzing a BTS music video is to treat it the same way you might treat a movie, and know that every shot is done with a level of careful consideration. So when Omelas shows up as the name of the motel where many pivotal scenes in Spring Day occur, this is not an accident. BTS want us to see this and look at the scene with fresh eyes after having done our research. Knowing this, I think some people may once again get intimidated, as I described at the beginning of this video. After all, I think many of us know the boys are trying to tell us something with their complicated storytelling, but I think just as many of us are afraid to try and unpack that message out of fear we'll get it wrong. But I look at it this way. Imagine you go to a friend's house for dinner, and they've cooked you an amazing meal. When you enjoy that meal, your friend will probably want to know how you feel about some of their choices. They might ask you if you liked how the dish was seasoned, or if you enjoyed the way they cooked it. They might hope that you tasted some of the flavors they used, and ask if you picked up on any of them. Did you taste this ingredient? What about that one? However, I highly doubt your friend would expect you to sit there after the meal and name every ingredient in the meal with perfect accuracy, nor would they expect you to be able to quote the entire recipe after eating said meal. All that to say, I don't think BTS expect or even want us to be able to describe everything that's happening in a music video or a song. I don't think they expect us to pick up on every little detail, understand every reference or metaphor, or connect every single thread. Much like a friend cooking you dinner, the primary thing they want you to do is enjoy and be satisfied with their work, and to use that work however you most need it. However, also like a friend who has made you dinner and hopes you've enjoyed specific elements of the dish, I believe BTS want us to at least try to engage with their content on a thoughtful and insightful level. We don't have to get every detail correct or understand everything we're seeing, but we should definitely try. Beyond that, brainstorming theories is tremendously fun, and doing a little bit of research into the things we don't understand in a song or music video unlocks so much meaning that we can apply to our own lives. BTS's work is like an iceberg. So much of it lies underneath the surface, and I think we miss a huge part of their artistry if we only stay above the water. With that being said, is there a wrong way to analyze BTS's music videos and lyrics? Well, yes and no. For example, take this interpretation of the song Dionysus from Map of the Soul Persona. Dionysus is a song about a booze-filled rager. That statement is not wrong in the technical sense. Dionysus is an exciting song based around the image of the Greek god of wine and excess, deliberately calling into mind a wild party full of excitement and ecstasy. But to leave things there ignores the deliberate and obvious metaphor of what the alcohol in the song actually is: art. Do a little digging and you can easily discover that the core feature of the song is the fact that the Korean words for alcohol and art are actually very similar. Thus, the entire song is actually casting BTS as offering a heady cocktail of music, dance, artistry, and excitement, not actual liquor. To take "drink it up" or "one shot, two shots" at face value and assume there's nothing underneath means missing a deep and fascinating message which speaks to a great deal about who BTS are and what they do. Would it be an incorrect interpretation of the song? Not in the literal sense. But it would be wrong in the sense of assuming that BTS music is simple, small-minded, or hollow. Nothing could be further from the truth. And this is why I so strongly advocate getting curious about BTS's lyrics in order to unlock deeper meaning. In my opinion, exploring BTS's music and lyrics is kind of like being a detective or an explorer, trying to piece clues together and get a full picture of something that always turns out to be deeply fascinating or exciting. The other question that might exist is why analyze these things at all? Why not just listen to a song or watch the video and go no further? And of course, it's entirely possible to do that and still have a great time. But it's possible to enjoy a song so much more with just a little bit of time and effort, and, in my eyes, it's also deeply rewarding. BTS's music can be fun, or cathartic, or thought-provoking, but above all, it's also important. Not only does it introduce listeners to art, but it's art in and of itself. Great pieces of art have been analyzed by people for years, whether it's a great book or an influential movie. So why not BTS? BTS is more than a Korean pop band, and their music is more than lighthearted pop. These are relevant songs with stories to tell, penned and performed by young men who have important things to say that we, as their fans, are lucky enough to hear and interpret in our own lives. So I think the best tip I can give anyone who wants to analyze BTS's work is to embrace it. Have fun with it, and don't be afraid of being wrong. As long as you don't get deliberately absurd in your analysis, chances are you'll be on the right path. And even if you're missing a few things in your interpretation, there are always things to learn that unlock even more meaning behind your favorite songs and videos. We as ARMY are here to enjoy ourselves, but we're also here to spread the important messages BTS has given us. The first step of that is to be curious and engaged as we actively experience their work. This doesn't take a lot of time or resources. It just takes a spark of curiosity and a whole lot of willingness to listen to what BTS has to say. And let's face it, we were all doing that anyway, weren't we? So let's have fun, but also learn as we go, thinking of ourselves as ARMY scholars, detectives, explorers, and yes, theorists. I hope that part of your listening and analysis journey with BTS will be spent with me, and I hope that my interpretation can serve as thoughtful jumping off points for your own ideas as you deep dive into BTS's lyrics, videos, and themes. Happy exploring!